Before we write any code, let's first of all understand how we can store data in a Flutter app, so in the app we're building here. Because we basically got two options. We can store data on the device, so in device storage. And that kind of also includes in memory whilst our app is running, which is actually the storage mechanism we were using thus far. All the products we were working in our shop, the products we added and we deleted, all of that was stored in memory, which is why when the app restarted, all of that progress was lost because the memory is reset when the app restarts. But we also have better device storage than just memory, which is very temporary, obviously. We can also store data on the device such that it persists. But the alternative to that also is storing data on a web server, so outside of the device. Now, if you store data in the device storage, it's always only available for your app and therefore only for this user of your app, not for other users of your app who have the app installed on other devices because, per definition, it's only stored on that device storage. Still, if you're not storing it in memory, but you're using something like SQLite or some other device storage options, the data will actually persist on your device across app restarts, which is great. Thus far, we're not taking advantage of this. When we restart our app, everything is lost, all our state is lost because we only work with memory thus far. You can also tap into other device storages, which will survive app restarts, and we will actually use such a device storage later in the course when we have a look at user authentication. Now, an advantage about storing something on device, of course, is that it also works offline. You don't need an internet connection because you just fetch it from your local file system on your device, so to say. Now, the web server, on the other hand, has the big advantage that data which you store there is available for all users across different devices. The data is not bound to a specific device because it's stored totally independent from the device your app is running on some server in the web. And therefore, of course, data like the products in a shop need to be stored on a web server because you're not just building the shop for the one user on one device to use it, but you want to have a shop where users install the app and then the data they see is centrally available so that every user sees the same products and can interact with the same products. Just like local storage or device storage, data that's stored on a web server, of course, restarts, app restarts, and even app installs. So even if users uninstall your app and reinstall it, since the web server is not touched by this, the data, of course, persists that, and your app can always fetch that data from the server, no matter if it was restarted, reinstalled, or whatever, or if you're accessing your account from a totally different device, for example. Now, obviously, since it's a server in the web, you need an internet connection to interact with it, though, and therefore this only makes sense for data that should be shared across devices. If you're just having data that belongs to your app and to your device, using a web server might not be the best idea, because whilst you can, of course, restrict the access to the user of your device, you still would have the downside of requiring an internet connection, which device storage obviously never needs. So using a web server makes sense for a lot of scenarios, and especially for scenarios where data should be shared across devices and across users of your app, which is of course the case for a lot of data. For any blog you're building, for news apps, for shops, for something like Uber and so on, they all need to store data centrally on servers so that users can interact across different devices.